The 9/11 attacks, a defining moment in modern history. Good morning, afternoon. Today, we are delving into one of the most defining events of the 21st century, the September 11, 2001 attacks. Often referred to simply as 9/11s, this tragic day not only shook the United States, but also deeply impacted the global political, security, and societal landscape. This video takes you through the events of that heartbreaking day, their causes, impacts, and the lessons we have drawn from them. Let's begin by revisiting the events of 9/11s. On a clear, late summer morning, life in the United States was proceeding as usual. It was the beginning of an ordinary Tuesday, until sudden and horrifying events shattered normalcy and plunged the nation into chaos and grief. At 8:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. The skyscraper, a symbol of economic power and American resilience, was engulfed in flames shortly after the impact. Less than 20 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., another plane, United Airlines Flight 175, struck the South Tower, confirming to the world that this was no accident but a coordinated act of terrorism. As news cameras and horrified onlookers focused on New York City, a third attack unfolded. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Arlington, Virginia. This act targeted the very heart of America's military operations. The final chapter of the attack came through the heroic resistance of passengers aboard United Airlines Flight 93. After learning about the earlier attacks through cell phone calls, passengers fought back against the hijackers. Ultimately, the plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m., sparing another likely target, which is believed to have been either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. In New York, the devastation continued. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed under the weight of structural damage and raging fires. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower followed. These collapses resulted in a monumental loss of life and the obliteration of a key part of the New York City skyline. Nearly 3,000 innocent lives were lost on that day, including passengers, first responders who rushed to the disaster sites, and office workers trapped in the towers. Millions around the world watched in shock and sorrow as events unfolded live on television. The world, as people knew it, deeply changed in the space of a single morning. The 9/11 attacks were orchestrated by Al-Qaeda, a terrorist organization based in Afghanistan and led by Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda had long harbored grievances against the United States, which stemmed from several factors, including U.S. military presence in the Middle East, support for Israel, and what bin Laden viewed as exploitation of Muslim lands. The attacks came after years of escalating tensions, with smaller warning signs manifesting in previous incidents, such as the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center and the bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998. Despite these earlier attacks, the sheer scale and meticulous coordination of 9/11s were unprecedented. Al-Qaeda's highly trained operatives, 19 in total, successfully infiltrated the United States and took flying lessons to prepare for the mission. Two key elements allowed the attacks to unfold: gaps in U.S. aviation security and failures in intelligence communication. There had been warnings of an imminent threat from Al-Qaeda, but critical information was not acted upon sufficiently. These vulnerabilities paved the way for the tragic success of the terrorist plot. September 11, 2001, was a day of unparalleled loss and sorrow. The immediate aftermath saw nearly 3,000 fatalities, including lives lost in the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the 4 hijacked planes. Many of those who perished were simply going about their daily lives, commuting to work, flying to meetings, or responding to cries for help. In addition to the devastating human toll, the destruction left in New York City, Arlington, and the Pennsylvania crash site was unimaginable. The collapse of the Twin Towers released toxic dust clouds, causing long-term health complications for first responders and survivors. The Pentagon sustained heavy damage, disrupting military operations and symbolizing a direct attack on U.S. defense capabilities. Meanwhile, the crash of Flight 93 marked an act of heroism, reminding the world of the courage and resistance of ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. Across the United States, 9/11 sparked a unity unlike anything seen in decades. The nation came together in grief, anger, and solidarity. Flags were raised, memorials were constructed, and a renewed sense of patriotism emerged. However, this moment of unity also set the stage for profound shifts in policy, society, and international relations. The impact of September 11th reached far beyond America's borders. It served as a harsh awakening to the global threat of terrorism and led to both immediate and long-term changes in security, diplomacy, and human rights worldwide. In response to the attacks, President George W. Bush declared a war on terror, with the goal of eliminating terrorist organizations and the regimes that supported them. This initiative led to military operations in Afghanistan in late 2001, targeting al-Qaeda's safe havens and the Taliban regime that harbored the group. Later, in 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq under the pretext that Saddam Hussein's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction, though no such weapons were ever found. Both interventions were highly controversial, with ongoing debates about their effectiveness, the human cost, and the unintended consequences, such as destabilization in the Middle East and the rise of extremist groups like ISIS. Domestically, the attacks led to sweeping security reforms. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, was established to coordinate efforts against terrorism. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, heightened airport security protocols, changes that remain part of everyday life for travelers. Additional measures, like the USA Patriot Act, expanded government surveillance powers in an effort to prevent future attacks. These policies sparked heated debates on the balance between ensuring security and protecting civil liberties. Globally, countries strengthened counterterrorism measures, tightening travel restrictions, and increasing surveillance of suspected extremists. The events of 9/11 underscored the need for greater international cooperation to combat terrorism, leading to alliances and intelligence-sharing agreements between nations. 9/11 profoundly influenced global culture and society. The attacks altered how people viewed safety, particularly in public spaces like airports, concert venues, and skyscrapers. Fear of further attacks reshaped daily life, as governments urged citizens to remain vigilant. Media and art also reflected the shift in consciousness. Films, books, and memorial projects explored themes of resilience, loss, and the importance of peace. At the same time, sensationalist portrayals of certain ethnic and religious groups sometimes fostered misunderstanding and discrimination, highlighting the complex social legacy of the attacks. Economically, the events caused widespread disruption. In addition to the immense financial costs of rebuilding and military efforts, global markets experienced shockwaves. Businesses in Lower Manhattan were displaced, while airlines faced bankruptcies and logistical challenges. In the years following, the price of counterterrorism efforts exceeded trillions of dollars, straining government budgets and shifting priorities. The aftermath of 9/11 offered the world critical lessons about addressing terrorism, building resilience, and navigating the challenges of global conflict. One of the key lessons was the importance of breaking down bureaucratic silos in intelligence agencies. In the U.S., reforms were implemented to improve information sharing between the CIA, FBI, and other agencies, helping to thwart future attacks. The response to 9/11 sparked an ongoing debate about the balance between national security and individual privacy. From enhanced surveillance programs to airport screenings, governments around the world have grappled with how to protect lives without infringing on fundamental rights. Perhaps most importantly, the global response to 9/11 underscored the interconnected nature of modern society. Terrorism is not confined by borders, requiring a shared international commitment to prevention, dialogue, and peace-building. As we reflect on September 11, 2001, we honor those who lost their lives and those who showed extraordinary bravery in the face of terror. The events of that day changed how we perceive safety, how nations interact, and how we view our role in fostering unity across divides. Though it was a day marked by devastation, it also revealed humanity's resilience and determination. Memorials now stand to remind us of the past, but they also inspire us to strive for a more united and peaceful future. Thank you for joining us as we revisited this critical chapter in shared history. Each lesson we learn from this day strengthens our resolve to create a world where events like 9/11s never occur again. Let us remember, reflect, and work together in hope and solidarity.